And as an extension of that question, how do you see explaining differentiated instruction to parents or to communities that don't understand why there's mixed ability instruction going on in the same room? So traditionally tracked students in the honors program might be with other kids in another setting, and parents don't understand what you're doing.
Let me go back and handle one step that I skipped in that last question, and then I'll answer this one. We have pre-service opportunities to help teachers learn to differentiate. We also need to have in-service ones. And one of the things that we're seeing there, which I guess really is a direct parallel to the pre-service program, we need to teach teachers about differentiation, practicing teachers. They also have one-size-fits-all models. And so much of the teaching that we do with them needs to be in their classrooms, not in auditoriums with 250 people. That may be okay for an introduction, maybe not, but maybe so. But the staff development with in-service teachers needs to go immediately to their classrooms. So what's the point of what you're teaching today? And what are the needs of the kids, and how do you know that? And what are ways that we could think of arranging the classroom and the instruction so that it would better meet the needs of these kids that we have reason to believe aren't faring quite as well? So that, again, we're creating images for them. And then the second thing we find in in-service situations that are successful is that they are different in several ways from the ones that don't come up with that success rate for teachers. And one is there's a leader who occupies the bully pulpit for saying our job is to make this work for every kid. And until we have evidence that it really is, we're going to keep asking ourselves, what else can we do? How else can we do it? Mm-hmm. And that person is persistent and insistent and consistent with messages related to differentiation, is in classes, uses faculty meeting time for that sort of thing, has reading groups, looking at particular students, dissecting what goes on in classes. The leadership piece with clear, persistent leadership is hugely important. The other thing, again, is that we find that schools move to differentiation when they experience it themselves as faculty members. In other words, when that leader has clear goals and it's understood that everybody's heading toward those, but the leader can say, you know, you have some choices about which thing to approach first. And we can support you in different ways depending on those choices. And depending on your comfort level, we can push you down the pike further or let you move a little more slowly. And besides that, if we come together as a community of learners, we can figure out a lot together. It doesn't have to be every man for himself, so let's become a team moving in this direction. When you model the principles of differentiation for a faculty, I've never seen one yet that doesn't get the point. And when they start seeing again what it is like for them compared to the we all have to do this and all have to go to the same staff development, all have to jump over the same hoop, it begins to be a real clear case for the classroom. I honestly think that explaining differentiation to parents is much easier than we think it is. In the first place, I would not necessarily go running out and say, ooh, we're going to differentiate instruction this year, because it sounds like another piece of jargon that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. I think the first thing we need to do to parents is to talk with them in language that makes sense to real human beings, and that is, you know what, I think if I know your kid better, I can teach him better. And so if you can help me know him better, that would be really useful to me, and here's some ways you can do that, but here's some ways I'm going to try to get to know him better. And so what I'm thinking is, as I understand what he understands, I can move him along faster. Mm-hmm. If there's something he's really strong in, I'd like to really emphasize that so he can see his talent developing. Where he has potholes, I'd like to sort of help patch those potholes, and here's some ways we're going to do that. In a lot of years of teaching, I've never had a parent say anything like, you mean you want to know my kid? I don't want you to do that. You mean you want to try to make this work for him? I don't think so. I think the message is pretty clear, and I don't think too many caring parents would reject the message, but the second part is harder, and that is, once you've told me you're going to do it, you need to do it. And so if you're telling me that there's an advanced learner in my class, and you want that student to be able to move at a pace that's challenging for her, then don't just tell me that, show me that it's going to happen.
Right.
And when you tell me that you want to understand my students' weaknesses and help cover those, show me where that's going on. Don't take a kid who's hurting and leave him hanging out there by himself all the time. Show me some ways that this is actually going to work. So I think the language part is easier, the delivery part is the hard part.
Okay, thank you. Were you ever in a differentiated classroom yourself as a student, and what was that like?
You know, I doubt that I ever really was. I can think of one place in my college career where the teacher would not have called it differentiated. I mean, it's not that she was trying to model anything like that, but I think in fact it was, and it was in a sophomore history class where the professor really tried to understand our backgrounds as well as she could in a large group of students, and she assigned us to an investigation in the community that at first glance had nothing to do with what we were studying in class, and she was a really elderly person anyhow, and most of us in our young sophomoric lives thought she was fairly dotty. But in truth, what she was doing was helping us see how the principles of history, the big themes of history, were alive in the world that we lived in. And what she ended up doing was showing us how whatever the thing was she had assigned us, you could see the themes of history in over a long period of time as you looked at it. And it had to do then a lot with individual conversations with us and making sure that she pulled in all the community experiences we were having into classroom instruction and that sort of thing. I was lucky, and that was a case where I think she was differentiating in that everyone in the class was in her sights. And it was not that she was just trying to help two advanced learners or poor kids who were about to fall out. She really was looking at everybody and trying to bring all of us in. I was lucky in having teachers who differentiated for me at some other times. And they may have done it for some other students, but I think in all those cases it probably was more of an individual kind of thing that a few students experienced, not a class-wide sort of process.
Right.